Have you ever considered that the most dangerous enemy isn't on the battlefield, but right inside the house you call home? I was an army officer, accustomed to facing danger, to death lurking around every corner. But nothing I experienced at Fort Haven could compare to the pain I found when I returned home. A soldier can prepare for any scenario, but how do you prepare for the moment you find your 6-year-old daughter trembling in fear, covered in bruises? How could I accept that the very wife I trusted, along with her own mother, were the ones who had turned my sanctuary into a living hell? I didn't listen to my gut feeling. I was too blinded by a sweet false facade, and the price for my mistake was paid in the silence and tears of my daughter. Can a soldier like me reclaim justice, correct his mistakes, and truly protect his own child? This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's about how a man finds justice and rediscovers what a true home is, rising from the ashes of his shattered trust. I'm Nathaniel, a U.S. Army officer stationed at Fort Haven. It's been years since my wife passed away, and I've gotten used to life as a single father, raising Penelope, my 6-year-old daughter. My job is intense, with constant deployments and rotations, demanding meticulous planning, team supervision, and split-second decisions. A minor error can cost lives. At home, Penelope is my reason to stay grounded. When I'm deployed, a nanny looks after her, and I try to video call every day to see her face, to hear her voice, to remind myself that every effort is for the small, safe world I have left to protect. Then I met Genevieve. She was from Evergreen Heights, beautiful, gentle, and had a natural way with Penelope that put me at ease. I was drawn to her. The emptiness I'd been carrying seemed to fill up. This is it, I thought. This is the home, the safe harbor I've been searching for. We got married. Not long after, one evening, Genevieve mentioned her mother, Delilah. She was getting older, with no one else to depend on, and Genevieve wanted to bring her to live with us. I looked at her, and in her eyes, all I saw was devotion. I agreed, deeply moved. A wife who loved my daughter and honored her mother, that made me love and trust her even more. So the four of us, me, Penelope, Genevieve, and Delilah, moved into my house in Evergreen Heights. I organized everything systematically. A separate room for Penelope, a set schedule, house rules. I wanted to ensure that no matter where I was, Penelope would have a stable foundation to rely on. Penelope beamed in Genevieve's arms. Looking at her, I felt a sense of complete happiness. Penelope was everything to me, and now she had a warm home, with both a mother and a grandmother, just as I had always hoped. That perfect happiness didn't last long. Duty called again. I returned to my post at Sierra Ridge to continue my rotation. The work there was much the same as at Fort Haven: training, operational oversight, crisis management. For the first few days away, I held on to that sense of peace and trust. I video called home regularly. The screen always showed Genevieve's gentle smile as she recounted how well she was taking care of Penelope. She'd tell me about Penelope's school days, the games they played together. It all sounded right. However, after a few weeks, I started noticing unusual changes in Penelope. The once bubbly, chatty girl who would fight for the screen to tell me her stories now seemed withdrawn. Whenever I called, her eyes would dart to the side, towards Genevieve or Delilah, as if afraid of something I couldn't see. Her smile was no longer natural and carefree. I started paying closer attention. During one call, as Penelope accidentally pushed up her sleeve, I saw faint bruises on her small arm. I paused for a few seconds, looked closer, and asked, "Penelope, what happened to your arm?" My gaze lingered there. Genevieve quickly noticed. She immediately reached over, gently rubbing Penelope's arm and pulling the sleeve back down. then explained with a bright smile. "Oh, honey, you saw that? She was just playing rough with her friends at school and took a tumble. You know how kids are, they fall all the time." A cold feeling crept over me. The bruises, from what my trained eye could tell from countless injuries I'd seen, didn't look like they came from a simple fall. They were shaped like fingers. An image flashed through my mind, a hand gripping her arm. But my discipline, the ironclad logic ingrained in me, immediately pushed back. No proof, just speculation. A voice in my head said. I tried to dismiss the image. Genevieve loved Penelope. I had seen it. To shatter the trust in the home I had worked so hard to rebuild over a vague gut feeling. I couldn't do it. I chose to believe her explanation. But the image of those bruises remained in my mind, like a shard of broken glass waiting to be stepped on. Still, the image of Penelope's haunted eyes wouldn't leave me. It was like a silent signal, waiting to be decoded. And I knew I needed to observe more, not jump to conclusions. Time passed, and my video calls from Sierra Ridge became a source of growing anxiety. Penelope was noticeably thinner. Her face no longer radiant. Her innocent, childlike smile had vanished completely, replaced by a look of sad, weary exhaustion, as if something heavy was weighing on her young soul. Once, while talking to Penelope on screen, I saw a distinct red welt on her cheek. It was far too large to be a mosquito bite. I was about to ask, but Genevieve immediately covered Penelope's face with her hand, quickly explaining, "Oh, honey, that's from when she ran into the corner of the table yesterday. Poor thing. She's always running around without looking." I tried to press Penelope for more, but she just shook her head, her lips pressed tightly together. Her eyes avoided mine, filled with an unnameable fear. She even flinched slightly when Genevieve placed a hand on her shoulder while I was talking. The gesture wasn't the comforting touch of a loving parent. Finally, Penelope whispered. Her voice choked. "I'm okay, Daddy. I miss you so much." Her voice was so quiet, almost a trapped breath, that I had to strain to hear it. Those few words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. A cold, heavy sense of dread washed over me and took hold. The uneasy feeling grew into a full-blown alarm. Penelope's silent signals were becoming clearer and harder to dismiss, but the disciplined mind of a soldier, trained to trust hard evidence, made me hesitate to suspect my wife. I had invested so much trust in Genevieve. In this family, I didn't want to believe I had been wrong. Still, the scattered pieces of the puzzle kept appearing, forming a dark, unsettling picture I couldn't ignore. One fateful afternoon, I was on a remote border outpost, supervising a routine training exercise. My phone rang an unknown number. When I answered, the voice on the other end was professional and direct. But every word he spoke pierced me like a cold blade. "This is Evergreen Medical Center. We're treating a patient, Penelope, your daughter. She was admitted with severe injuries." My heart stopped. I forced my voice to remain calm. "What kind of injuries? Who's the legal guardian present?" "A fractured rib, multiple soft tissue injuries, and layers of old and new bruises in places inconsistent with accidental falls." The doctor's voice was steady, professional, but each word was like a hammer blow. "The guardian claims she fell down the stairs." He paused, the silence hanging heavy, before adding with clear implication, "Nathaniel, as a doctor, I have to tell you that these injuries show signs of repeated, non-accidental trauma. The hospital was required to report this." I was stunned. As an Army officer, I was used to bad news. But this was Penelope, my daughter. I immediately called Genevieve. She answered almost instantly. "Honey, What's wrong? Her voice sounded worried, but I could sense a chilling calmness beneath it. Genevieve, the hospital just called. Penelope is there. How do you explain a fractured rib? Her voice trembled slightly, but she remained firm. Oh my God, don't worry. She was playing on the stairs and took a nasty fall. I rushed her to the hospital right away. Kids fall. You know how it is. I listened, but her words felt like stones dropping into a bottomless pit. The explanation was too neat, too ready. The tremor in her voice felt like a poorly rehearsed act. This time there was no self-reassurance. Her explanation, her chillingly calm tone, it didn't match the image of a child with a broken rib. The unease I had suppressed for so long erupted into a cold, furious certainty. I knew something was wrong. Terribly wrong. I hung up. Without wasting another second, I immediately requested leave from my unit to return home. I had to find out the truth for myself. My trust had been broken, and I wouldn't let any more lies blind me. I flew straight from the remote border to Evergreen Heights without a moment's delay. My first stop was Evergreen Medical Center. When I walked into her hospital room, the sight of Penelope, small and fragile in the bed, wrapped in bandages, her eyes wide with terror, felt like a physical blow. The pain radiating from her small body seemed to transfer directly to me, sharp and cold. I gently sat beside her and held her in my arms. Penelope trembled, but with just the two of us there, she began to whisper. Each word was like a needle, piercing my ears. She recounted the beatings, the slaps, the cruel taunts from Aunt Genevieve and Grandma Delilah. As she spoke, she would flinch and look towards the door, as if expecting them to walk in at any moment. Her small hand unconsciously gripped my sleeve. Aunt Genevieve and Grandma. They hit me. They said I was useless, that I didn't deserve your love. Penelope sobbed. They called me a bastard child, and said if I told you, they wouldn't let me see you anymore and would hit me harder. My heart shattered. I held her tighter, closing my eyes to contain the rage boiling inside me. I believed my daughter. I knew Penelope had never lied to me, and I knew a 6-year-old couldn't invent such horrors. But as a soldier, I also knew a hard truth. The word of a 6-year-old child wasn't enough legal proof. Genevieve and Delilah could easily twist the narrative, claiming my daughter resented her stepmother and was making things up to hurt them. I needed undeniable evidence, hard proof with no room for doubt. Just then, the hospital room door swung open. Genevieve walked in, a look of surprise flashing across her face when she saw me. Instantly, she slipped into a flawless performance, as if she had been rehearsing for this moment. Her eyes filled with tears, her voice choked with emotion. As she rushed to the bedside and hugged Penelope in a false embrace. Oh, my sweet baby girl, your daddy's here. I was so worried about you. I just stepped out to get you some food and fresh clothes. I watched her, the rage inside me a roaring fire, but I held it back. I knew I couldn't reveal my suspicion now. I couldn't afford to put her on guard. Any misstep, and I would lose my chance. I suppressed my emotions and played along with her act. I nodded, forcing a faint smile. Thank you, Genevieve. I know this has been hard on you. My voice was dry, but it was enough to keep her from suspecting anything. After leaving the hospital, I didn't go home. I went straight to an electronics store and bought the smallest, most discreet hidden cameras I could find. I mentally mapped out the house, the staircase, the living room, the hallway, and Penelope's room. Every blind spot in the house would become my eyes. That night, I secretly installed them in my home in Evergreen Heights. Every nook, every corner, no place was left unchecked. Only when I was certain the plan was in motion did I return to Fort Haven to finalize my official leave. My heart was heavy, but my resolve was unshakable. The game had begun, and I was the one setting the rules. Back at Fort Haven, I completed the necessary paperwork. Though I was physically on base, my mind was glued to my personal tablet, where I watched the live feed from the hidden cameras in my home. Every frame, every sound, felt like a cold knife twisting in my heart. What I saw on the screen left me speechless. The pain and fury were overwhelming. Genevieve and Delilah had dropped their masks. The two women I had trusted had revealed their true, monstrous selves. They took turns berating and beating Penelope. These weren't accidental bumps. They were vicious blows with brooms, with their hands, echoing slaps. Penelope was starved, forced to do heavy chores, and constantly bombarded with cruel insults like useless, bastard child, and troublemaker. I watched Penelope shrink back, her eyes filled with tears, begging them to stop. But her pleas only fueled their cruelty. Genevieve and Delilah hit her harder, their voices low and menacing as they threatened her. "You say one word to your father, and I'll throw you out on the street. And, if you let him find out, you'll never see him again." My heart ached. Every blow that landed on her felt like I was being torn apart myself, but I didn't allow my anger to take over. I watched. I remembered. I collected the evidence. In one crystal-clear recording, I saw Genevieve speaking to her mother with a look of smug contempt, thinking no one could hear them. "Look at this stubborn little thing. Mother, I barely reminded her today, and her arm is already bruised. And her father still believes she's just clumsy. What a fool." Delilah chuckled, her voice laced with malice. "She'll get used to it, as long as she's too scared to talk. That walking ATM of a father will keep sending money. Disciplining her a little is for our own good, daughter." I sat frozen in front of the screen. My chest felt tight, but my eyes grew cold. There was no room left for doubt. It was all laid bare. This wasn't just abuse. It was a calculated plan. The pain and fury transformed into a cold, powerful energy. I wanted to fly home immediately and end it all. But I knew I had to act with precision. There could be no mistakes. I would end this on my terms, leaving them no chance to deny it. With the undeniable evidence in hand, the crystal-clear videos, the chilling conversations, I requested emergency leave and returned home. The flight back to Evergreen Heights was heavy, but in my heart, everything was clear. This time, I wasn't coming back to smooth things over. I was coming back to end it. Unannounced, I appeared at the house in Evergreen Heights. I wanted to see their true faces when they were caught off guard. The door swung open. Genevieve and Delilah were watching TV in the living room, a scene of false domestic peace. When they saw me standing in the doorway, they both jumped, their eyes wide with confusion. Genevieve was the first to react, a smile quickly forming on her lips, but I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes. "You're back? You didn't tell me you were coming. Why aren't you staying at the base a few more days?" "Penelope is still in the hospital." Her voice was trying to sound natural, but it was laced with unease. I didn't answer, not a single word. My eyes were as cold as steel, scanning both of them before settling on the laptop in my hand. I walked in and placed the laptop, already playing the evidence, on the coffee table. Instantly, the images of Genevieve and Delilah abusing, beating, and taunting Penelope filled the large screen. Both of them froze. The color drained from their faces. Genevieve recovered first, but it was the composure of a desperate person. She tried to explain. "Nathaniel, let me explain. You're misunderstanding. The girl, she's stubborn. She doesn't listen. You have to believe me. I was just trying to teach her." I looked at her with utter disgust and disappointment. The wife I had trusted with all my heart was now doing everything to harm my daughter. As if sensing my thoughts, she suddenly burst out laughing, a twisted, mocking sound. "You're going to believe some edited nonsense video over your own wife, Nathaniel? Look at what Penelope has filled your head with. I was just trying to raise her right since you're never home. You're just using this as an excuse to kick me out, aren't you?" She lunged forward, trying to shut the laptop, but I was faster. I grabbed her wrist, my grip firm enough to stop her. I didn't need to say much. "It's over, Genevieve." My voice was ice. "Your act is finished." The words and images from the camera were undeniable proof. Genevieve started to panic, her voice stammering as she blamed Penelope, even trying to shift the blame to her mother. Delilah, now pale as a ghost, just shrank back, unable to look me in the eye. I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police," I said, my words clear and deliberate. My eyes locked on the two women frozen before me. I dialed the Evergreen Heights Police Department, and not only that, I contacted my lawyer, a representative from Child Protective Services, CPS, and a JAG officer from my military unit. I wanted them all here, as witnesses, to handle this case publicly and transparently. There was no escape for them. Genevieve trembled and collapsed, her voice breaking. "Please, forgive me. It was just a moment of anger. I promise. I'll change." Delilah was white as a sheet, shaking uncontrollably, unable to utter a word. The charade was completely shattered. I watched the two of them kneeling before me, begging, tears streaming down their faces, but it was too late. I watched them, and my own tears fell, not from weakness, but from the overwhelming pain and rage of misplaced trust. The belief in a safe home had been utterly destroyed by the very people I had chosen, but I did not waver. I had sworn an oath, in my work and in my family, that once the truth is revealed, no one escapes accountability. The Evergreen Heights Police Department arrived shortly after my call. The undeniable video evidence, my testimony, and Penelope's terrified state were enough for them to arrest Genevieve and Delilah on the spot. The two women, now completely stripped of their arrogance, were filled with only panic and desperation. The act was over, the sweet, deceitful voices gone. They were silent as they were led away, the flashing red and blue lights of the patrol car illuminating their faces. They were taken to the station and would later face the full force of the law for child abuse and domestic violence at the Colorado State Penitentiary. Justice, at least on paper, had been served. I initiated divorce proceedings as quickly as possible. There was nothing to hold on to, nothing to mourn. I regained full custody of Penelope, and more importantly, I had gotten justice for her. But the victory brought no sense of pride, only a heavy sense of relief. I had been too blind, and Penelope had suffered for it. To be there for Penelope, I decided to take an extended leave from the military. I even considered early retirement. All the honors, all the achievements in my military career meant nothing if I couldn't protect my only child. I needed to be with her. I took Penelope to Harmony Creek Therapy Center, a specialized treatment facility for both physical and psychological healing. I sat with her through every therapy session, patiently comforting her, listening as she tearfully recounted her nightmares. Each word was a knife twisting deeper into me. Day by day, I patiently soothed and comforted her, slowly healing the wounds, both inside and out, that Genevieve and Delilah had inflicted. And in the process, I also learned to confront my own mistakes, to forgive myself for my blindness so I could move forward. Every day that passed, I was filled with a deep regret for my blindness. I hadn't listened to my intuition, had let trust cloud my judgment, and had allowed Penelope to endure unspeakable suffering. I made a promise to myself, and to the memory of my late wife, that I would make it all up to her. During Penelope's recovery, I received support and help from an old friend, a fellow female soldier from Fort Haven named Rhiannon. She was strong and tough in her work, but incredibly warm and sensitive in her personal life. Rhiannon didn't pity me or offer empty platitudes. She understood the depth of my and Penelope's pain. She was not only a source of emotional support for me, but also genuinely loved Penelope. Rhiannon was quietly there, helping to care for Penelope, taking her for walks, listening to the small, childish stories that Genevieve had dismissed, and helping me guide Penelope through her trauma. As time went on, Penelope recovered. Her bright, innocent smile returned, and she became the lively, active girl she once was, participating in school activities and playing with friends. Every time I heard her laugh, I felt a part of me healing as well. I realized that true happiness isn't about a perfect, glamorous facade, but about sincerity, unconditional love, and mutual trust. I had lost a lot to learn that lesson, but in the end, I had found my true home. The ghosts of the past were gone, replaced by a small family filled with love and peace in Evergreen Heights. With Rhiannon and Penelope, I knew the road ahead was still long, but with them by my side, I believed I could overcome anything.